Secretary of War Pete Hegseth not holding back on the price of war.
As far as $200 billion, I think that number could move, obviously. It takes money to kill bad guys.
According to a senior administration official, the department has already sent the request to the White House.
Going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future.
The proposal is expected to face pushback, especially from Democrats who have opposed the war from the start.
It is beyond the pale that the administration is now floating the possibility of coming to Congress and asking for tens of billions of dollars more.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu denied claims that Israel pressured the U.S. into the conflict.
Does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on. President Trump always makes his decisions on what he thinks is good for America.
Hi, everyone. Adam is here. So what just happened, the most terrifying moment of Donald Trump's political life, didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened on live television, in front of millions of viewers, when a Fox News anchor asked him a simple question about the cost of his Iran war. And for the first time in his entire public career, the man who always has an answer, who never stops talking, who can filibuster his way through any uncomfortable topic, went completely silent.
If the war is almost over, why is the Pentagon going to ask Congress for an additional $200 billion?
Well, we're asking for a lot of reasons beyond even what we're talking about in Iran. This is a very volatile world, and the military equipment, the power of some of this weaponry is unthinkable. You don't even want to know about it. Oh, you could end this thing in 2 seconds if you wanted to, but we are being very judicious.
He just stood there. The cameras rolled, the seconds stretched into what felt like an eternity, and then he mumbled something about checking with his people and walked away. That silence wasn't awkward. It was a confession, because at that exact moment, Donald Trump knew what was about to hit him. A federal judge had just caught his administration lying to the courts about the cost of that war.
Start with this ongoing war with Iran. The administration seems to be keeping us on the dark on what this war is and when it's going to end. I want to get your take on that.
The administration launched a war of choice and disguised it as a war of necessity. And you can tell by the shifting rationale. They said it was about regime change. They said about helping protesters. They said it was about retribution. And then all of a sudden they said it was about attacking and undermining Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program. Even though the nuclear program was Trump claimed was obliterated last year, and the Department of Defense's own intelligence department said that they were almost 10 years away from getting the intercontinental ballistic missile capability that would be able to reach the United States.
Not a small lie, not a rounding error, a $4 billion lie. And now that same judge is preparing to have Trump's top officials arrested the moment they walk out of the White House for the last time. Let me take you inside what Judge James Boasberg discovered, because this isn't about political spin or media narratives. This is about documented financial records, internal government emails, and a federal judge who has run out of patience with being lied to. For months, Trump's Justice Department has been telling Congress and the courts that the Iran war cost $8.2 billion. That number appeared in legal briefs. It was cited in congressional testimony. It was repeated in media reports. It was the official, sworn, supposedly accurate figure that the administration presented as fact. But Judge Boasberg had doubts. The numbers seemed too clean, too convenient, too perfectly calibrated to stay under the $10 billion threshold that would trigger additional congressional oversight. So he did something that no administration wants a federal judge to do. He ordered an independent audit. He told the Government Accountability Office to go digging through the Pentagon's ledgers, through the intelligence community's spending records, through every financial document related to the war that Trump started. And what the GAO found was explosive enough to bring down a presidency. The real cost of the Iran war is $12.3 billion. That's not an estimate. That's not a projection. That's what the Pentagon's own internal ledgers show when you add up every category of spending that Trump's DOJ conveniently left out of their declarations. Military operations cost $7.2 billion, not the $5 billion the DOJ claimed. Long-term health care for wounded service members, costs that the DOJ omitted entirely, will add another $800 million over the lifetimes of the soldiers who came home broken. Intelligence and surveillance assets, the satellites, the intercepts, the constant monitoring of Iranian military movements, cost $2.1 billion, not the $1.5 billion the administration reported. Diplomatic security, humanitarian aid, compensation for civilian casualties, all the costs that come with starting a war in one of the most volatile regions on Earth. Add another $500 million that Trump's people tried to hide. And here's the detail that turns this from a bureaucratic accounting dispute into a criminal conspiracy. The GAO didn't just find honest mistakes, they found internal DOJ emails where officials discussed exactly which cost categories to exclude to keep the total number below $10 billion. They knew the war was more expensive than they were telling the court. They knew the real number would trigger additional congressional oversight. They knew it would make impeachment more likely. And they deliberately, systematically, intentionally hid the truth. That's not a miscalculation. That's fraud. That's perjury. That's contempt of court. And Judge Boasberg said so in language that left no room for ambiguity. He wrote that the Department of Justice had presented deliberately false information to his court. He called it perjury. He called it contempt. And then he issued a warning that sent shockwaves through every corner of the Trump administration. He ordered the DOJ to immediately correct the record and provide full and accurate cost disclosures. He demanded to know which officials were responsible for the false declarations, and then he told them exactly what would happen if they didn't comply. He said this court will issue criminal contempt charges against the responsible officials. He acknowledged that certain immunities protect executive branch officials while they're in office. And then he made it crystal clear that those immunities expire the moment those officials leave their positions. He said this court will ensure that arrest warrants are prepared and ready for execution at that moment. Let that land. A federal judge is sitting in his chambers right now, drafting arrest warrants for the Attorney General of the United States and the senior officials who signed off on those false filings. He can't execute them while they're in office. He knows that, but the moment Pam Bondi walks out of the Justice Department for the last time, the moment Trump's presidency ends, whether through resignation, impeachment, or the natural expiration of his term, those warrants become active. Federal marshals can execute them, the handcuffs come out, and the people who lied to a federal judge to protect their president go to jail. Now let me connect this to what's happening simultaneously across the rest of the federal judiciary. You already know about the 29 federal judges who issued a joint statement last week demanding Trump's resignation over his attacks on judicial independence and the 300% surge in death threats against judges. What you may not know is that those 29 judges are now updating their statement. They're adding language about systemic lying to the courts. They're citing Judge Boasberg's findings as evidence that Trump's administration isn't just attacking the judiciary with words. They're attacking it by committing perjury in legal proceedings, and they're signaling that criminal referrals to a special counsel are imminent. That means 29 federal judges are about to formally refer Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, and other senior officials for criminal prosecution for perjury, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. Think about what that means. When a politician accuses another politician of lying, voters treat it as partisan noise. When a federal judge, backed by 28 other federal judges, says the administration committed perjury in open court, that's not noise. That's evidence. That's legal validation. That's the kind of thing that ends presidencies because it gives every Republican senator who's been looking for cover permission to vote for conviction. They can say, I voted to remove the president because federal judges determined that crimes were committed. That's not political. That's the rule of law. And the timing couldn't be worse for Trump. Judge Boasberg's contempt ruling drops at the exact moment the Supreme Court is denying Trump's immunity appeal. At the exact moment Senate Republicans are publicly calling for his resignation. At the exact moment the House is preparing to vote on articles of impeachment. Every institution is converging on the same conclusion from different directions. The Supreme Court says you're not immune. The Senate says you should resign. The House says we're impeaching you. And the federal judiciary says you committed perjury and we're going to have you arrested. Trump's usual playbook is useless against this. He can't claim Judge Boasberg is biased. Boasberg is a respected jurist with a track record of fair rulings across the ideological spectrum. He can't claim the GAO audit is fake. The Government Accountability Office is a nonpartisan congressional watchdog that has been auditing government spending for 100 years. He can't claim the Pentagon ledgers are fabricated. They're official government records that his own people signed off on. The evidence is ironclad. The receipts exist, and judges have them. This brings us back to that Fox News moment. Peter Doocy asked Trump why Pentagon insiders were saying the war cost $12.3 billion when his administration was claiming $8.2 billion. And Trump, the man who always has a comeback, always has an insult, always has a deflection, went mute. He stood there on live television in front of the entire country with nothing to say. Because he knew. He knew Judge Boasberg was auditing the numbers. He knew the real figures were about to become public. He knew that anything he said on camera would be compared to the documentary evidence that was about to drop. So he said nothing, and that silence is now a viral symbol of his guilt. Everyone who watches that clip sees a man who was caught and knows it. That visceral reaction, that immediate understanding that the president is lying, shifts public opinion in ways that legal arguments never can. Now let me tell you what happens next, because the next 2 weeks are going to determine the fate of this presidency. Judge Boasberg has given the Justice Department a deadline. Correct the record, provide full disclosure, identify the responsible officials. If they comply, they're admitting they lied. If they don't comply, he issues criminal contempt charges and prepares those arrest warrants. Either option is catastrophic for the administration. Compliance is an admission of perjury. Non-compliance triggers immediate contempt proceedings and accelerates the criminal referrals. And this is happening simultaneously with the resignation deadline that Senate Republicans have reportedly set for Trump. According to sources, Republican senators have told the White House that if Trump doesn't resign by early April, they have enough votes to convict him in an impeachment trial. They've seen the evidence. They've read Judge Boasberg's ruling. They know the internal DOJ emails exist. They know the Pentagon ledgers are real. And they know that defending a president who committed perjury to hide the cost of a war is political suicide. So they're giving him a way out. Resign now, let Pence take over, and we'll all pretend this was about exhaustion rather than criminality. But if he forces a trial, they'll vote to convict and he'll be removed in disgrace. The historical parallels to Nixon are unavoidable. Nixon got caught lying about Watergate. He got caught covering up crimes, and when the evidence became undeniable, when his own party told him it was over, he resigned. Trump is in the same position now. Federal judges have caught him lying about war costs. They have the documentary evidence. They're threatening arrest. Senate Republicans are calling for his resignation. The only question is whether Trump will do what Nixon did and step aside, or whether he'll force the country through a full impeachment and conviction process that ends with him being removed anyway. And here's the detail that should terrify every Trump loyalist reading this. The arrest warrants Judge Boasberg is preparing don't expire when Trump leaves office. They become executable. The moment the presidency ends, whether in 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, federal marshals can execute those warrants. Pam Bondi could be arrested walking out of the Justice Department. Trump could be arrested walking out of the White House. The handcuffs go on the moment the immunity ends. That's what Judge Boasberg meant when he said this court will ensure that arrest warrants are prepared and ready for execution at that moment. This is the final shield being stripped away. For years, Trump has hidden behind executive privilege. He's hidden behind claims of immunity. He's hidden behind the institutional deference that courts traditionally show to the executive branch. But Judge Boasberg just made it clear that institutional deference has limits. When you lie to a federal judge, when you commit perjury in legal filings, when you obstruct justice, the deference ends. The handcuffs come out. And the only thing standing between Trump and those handcuffs is the presidency itself. So here's what you need to watch in the coming days. Watch the Justice Department's response to Judge Boasberg's order. Do they correct the record? Do they throw someone under the bus? Do they defy the court and dare Boasberg to issue contempt charges? Their response will tell you how terrified they are. Watch the 29-judge coalition. Their updated statement with criminal referrals is coming. When it drops, it will be the most damning judicial indictment of a sitting president in American history. Watch the Senate. The resignation deadline is real. Republican senators have seen the evidence. They know what's coming. The only question is whether they act on it. And watch Trump himself. His silence on Fox News told you everything you need to know. He knows he's caught. He knows the walls are closing in. And he knows that the moment he leaves office, whether voluntarily or through removal, the handcuffs are waiting. The judiciary has stopped being deferential and started being aggressive. The evidence is documented, verified, and undeniable. And for the first time in his political career, Donald Trump has no answer. He can't tweet his way out of perjury. He can't rally his way out of criminal contempt. He can't fire the judge who's drafting his arrest warrant. The power is gone. The protection is gone. And the only thing left is accountability. Drop a comment and tell me what you think. Does Trump resign before the arrest warrants come? Or does he force the country through an impeachment trial that ends with him being removed and prosecuted anyway? I'll see you in the next one.